Hello friends, welcome on the Dr. Rajesh Verma's YouTube channel. In this video, we'll be discussing the meaning of stress. The stress pioneer who worked tirelessly in the field of stress, Hans Selye, he said that it's not stress that kills us, it is a reaction to it. If we could get and understand the meaning of this sentence in terms of psychology, certainly we'll have a different perspective towards the stress and ensuing consequences. We'll start with the meaning of stress. You know, stress is a type of mental pressure on your cognitive system. It's a biological term which refers to the consequences of the failure of a human or animal to respond appropriately to emotional or physical threats to the organism, whether actual or imagined. The stress, interestingly, is not limited to human beings. Even animals experience stress. You know, it is the autonomic response. Autonomic response means it is beyond our control to environmental stimulus. It includes a state of alarm and adrenaline production, short-term resistance as a coping mechanism, and finally exhaustion. We'll be discussing these points when we discuss the GAS journal adaptation syndrome suggested by the Hans Selye. Common stress symptoms includes how you will able to identify that individual is under the influence of stress. The individual who faces stress will manifest some behavioral symptoms. Without symptom, it becomes difficult or almost impossible to diagnose with which disorder the individual is suffering from or problem the individual is suffering from. So there are some symptoms that includes irritability, muscular tension, your muscles will be tense, problem in concentration, problem in focusing attention, unusual responses to stimuli, excessive, sometimes sweating, and unable to write a coherent sentence. So there are some symptoms specifically manifesting the onset of the stress and individual. It is a response to the events or the phenomena or the challenges that comes in our life that have potential to disrupt or threaten to disrupt physical or psychological functioning of an individual. Hans Selye, the pioneer in stress studies, said that stress is not necessarily something bad. It all depends upon how we take it and how we respond to it. This means the stress is not induced by some external factors. External factors, though, act as a means to initiation of the stress. Then where from it come from? It is inside us. It is engenders from our inside, from our this cognitive domain. It's a nature's law that a thing or a disorder or a disease, a problem can be solved from where it has originated. So it's a point we must note down that stress has originated from inside of us. So it has to be dealt with the inside mechanism only. Outside mechanism can for time being or temporarily depress the symptoms of the stress, but the cure has to come from the inside. This is the fundamental point of the statement of this video. So stress is not always bad. Take an example. If you have done some creative work or creative output and you got lots of praise for that and you are satisfied with that, that is a kind of a stress that is beneficial for you. But if there is an event or a phenomena where we experience humiliation or something like that, that leads to the engendering of the stress from inside us. And that is harmful or the detrimental not only for your physical well-being or psychological well-being too. Stress. So what is the exact definition of stress? Every individual is unique. Therefore, every individual experiences stress in a unique way with different intensity, with different responses. So it's a bit difficult to bind the stress in a few words. However, to make the general populace understand what stress is, there are various definitions has been given or stress has been defined in various terms, which I am discussing right now. Stress is the term used to describe the physical, emotional, cognitive, and behavioral responses to events that are evaluated or judged in terms of importance or significance as threatening or challenging. According to APS, stress is any uncomfortable emotional experience accompanied by predictable biochemical, physiological, and behavioral changes. So these are some definitions that tries to explain the stress in its totality. So let us discuss these definitions in a little bit detail. The gist of this definition is that when we respond to events or stimuli, there are different kind of changes that occurs inside our body about which we do not know. There are biochemical changes, there are neurological changes, there are behavioral changes, there are physical changes, organic changes. These changes in context of individuals' various psychological factors, social factors, situational factors are responsible for the response, how we respond to the stimuli. Then, the studies conducted by researchers to figure out what are the events that induces the maximum level of stress. So these are some events in individual's life that can introduce or that can make an individual stressful. The highest level of a stress is experienced by an individual when there is a death of spouse. Then divorce, marital separation. The first three events are related to the human relations, the close relations. So we can understand the importance of interpersonal relations or the close relations in our life. We as a social being expect and experience these relations as important in our life. That's why the small disruption in these relations may lead to the highest level of stress. So I'm not going to read all this. You can read and you can understand that. The idea behind showing this bar diagram is to make you understand that what are the events that can lead to the stress in an individual. Nowadays, there is one more important platform that is leading to the stress is the virtual platform that has transcends all the boundaries, even geographical boundaries. So that event also may be included in the important events that induces the stress. Then I was discussing in the previous slides what are the symptoms manifested by the stress. fatigue and chest pain, sleeping problems, fear and crying, fear and irritation, frequent cold and nausea, unusual pace, too much or too little eating, anxiety and depression, drinking and smoking, throwing, hitting objects, and display of anger and frustration regularly. If out of these symptoms someone is manifesting one or two regularly, excessively, certainly that individual might be suffering from the bouts of stress and that need the immediate attention. What are the effects of stress on human body? Stress is the silent killer. This is the only disorder about which individual remains unknown. Still in the background, it works like a background application running in your system, and that is eating away not only the memory, including the power of your computer system. Similarly, stress always runs in the background and without the actual awareness or the knowledge of the individual. And slowly it compromises your psychophysiological health. Once our health is compromised, we face different type of effects. And remember, the first target of stress is your immune system. It affects that wall that protects you from the pathogens. So it's very dangerous. So other effect of stress may include decreased performance on both the domains, psychological performance or the physical performance. Then problem in concentration. Individual finds difficult to concentrate for longer period of time. Decreased attention. There's a memory problem. It becomes difficult to recall the event and information too. Problems in decision making, mental conflicts, loss of sense of humor, insomnia, muscular pain, high blood pressure and heart disease, weakened immune system, obesity, too much or too little eating, and different more effects of this stress. There's only one effect that is sufficient that can be fatal for individual: effect on your cognitive domain. So stress is such a phenomena. If it is a good one, it improves your productivity, it improves your performance. But if it is a distress one, it not only decreases your performance and your functionality, it can be fatal too. So what are the types of stress? So stress has been classified into two types: eustress and distress. Eustress means the optimal amount of stress that people need to promote health and well-being. This means the stress that leads to the better performance, the optimal amount of production, that comes under the domain of eustress. Why it occurs? Due to the positive events that still make demands on the person to adapt to changes. Example: marriage, job selection, promotion, arrival of baby, etc., etc. These are the events that induces the positive stress. This means that improves the performance of the individual. And the second classification is the distress. The stress that occurs due to the effect of unpleasant and undesirable stresses such as the accident, poor results of annual examination, or loss of something or some kind. So that is the distress. Distress is determinantal for your psychophysiological functionality, and it leads to the decreased performance. Now, what are the major sources of stress? Pressure, the psychological experience produced by the urgent demands, of expectations for a person's behavior that come from outside sources. Expectations from the outside sources, from other people, from your family members. If someone expects from you, certainly it's act as a kind of pressure, and that may make an individual stressful. The uncontrollability, the degree of control an individual have over an event or situation. If you can control an event, you will experience lesser stress. If the control of the event is outside your domain, certainly we experience relatively more stress. Frustration. If you are interested to do something, if someone stops you doing, certainly you will experience frustration. And if you do not want to do something and someone pressurizes you to do that, then again you will experience the frustration. The psychological experience produced by the blocking of a desired goal or fulfillment of a previous goal is a kind of frustration, and frustration leads to the stress. Then aggression. The next step of the frustration is the aggression. An action that is intended to harm, hurt or destroy. That may be against an object or a living being. Aggression is a big source of stress. Now, this is the GAS, General Adaptation Syndrome. In an event, if an individual faces stress, the first reaction will be alarm stage. Individuals get alarmed. There is an initiation of stress inside the body. In the second stage, resistance. Individuals try to resist the stressful events with all might, let it be psychological one or the physical one. And if the stressor continues, certainly that leads to the exhaustion stage. And again, if the stressor is continuous, that may lead to the death even. Different type of picturization, you can understand GS this way. General Adaptation Syndrome. What are the stages? Alarm stage, then the resistance stage, and finally the exhaustion stage. Even in all these stages, the stressors remain constant. And dear friends, it's all about the meaning of stress, its sources, definition, its effect, and some symptom. These are my references. You can cross-check them, and if you want to gain deeper insight, kindly refer. Our next lecture will be coping from the stress. By the time, dear friends, if you like the contents of this video, tell to others. But if you have some issues, just drop in a comment in my comment box, or you can email me at vamasujit@yahoo.com. Thank you friends for watching.